Hello, everyone, and welcome to September 29th, Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
We have 4 races to bring you in this week's segments, 2 segments all together. We'll start off with race number 6 from September 21st, a maiden special weight for 3-year-olds and up, going 1 1/8 on the inner turf course.
An effort in contrast, I would say, by the 2 horses we're showing. One of them appeared to be a dead closer. One of them appeared like he could have been the speed in this race. It worked out in the opposite. The horse who wins the race is much the best horse, Imagining, and that will get to him. Spring Court towards the inside and sort of blocked a little bit. That's the horse that I think a lot of us thought would have been one of the speeds. Ends up being well back, almost in last, and even shuffled back all the way to last in this race and doesn't do much running. Imagining, the horse who wins the race, a promising horse, but a horse who got a very good trip in this race.
He did indeed, and they'll go up to set the pace right now beneath jockey Javier Castellano, and toward the back of the pack down on the inside is a Spring Court and those Melnick Silks. And you're right, you look at this race and you're figuring that Spring Court, going into the first turn is going to be no worse than 4th, maybe a couple lengths behind the lead, but he's toward the back here and has trouble dealing with the inside and dealing with some traffic on the inside throughout most of the way here.
I thought that he would be on the lead, and based on his first race was a turf race, he was eliminated at the start. His second race, an off the turf race, he was right on the pace, in a pace that was fast enough to have the lead in this race. So I don't know what happened with this horse. I really don't. I don't know if he just didn't want to run today for whatever reason. I don't know if he's a horse with issues, and that's why he didn't make his debut until the middle of the year in his 3-year-old season. I don't know what happened, but I don't know how you can account for the way this race developed. Imagining was a horse who was stretching out off 7 and a mile races with quick paces, but races he came from dead last. He ends up getting put in the lead by Javier Castellano, who's very aware of the circumstances, and I give him a lot of credit for it. Bunched the whole field up. He's in front, of course. Spring Court now is all the way back in last, and that's what happens in these races, and you see him steadying completely out there finally.
Yeah, he's going to lose a couple lengths on the steady there and just completely out of position to where, most people thought he'd be throughout most of the race here. The one thing I didn't like about Spring Court here is that Johnny Velasquez is getting into him pretty good at this point here, and he just doesn't have a turn of foot. So maybe, there are a combination of factors at play, and maybe it just wasn't his day altogether here. He does have circumstances go against him, but, it takes him a while to get going here. He only passes a few horses that are tired late. I don't know that he was going to win this race anyway, the way he performed here today, but certainly, all things considered, he's a horse that has to be better than what he showed in this race.
The fourth quarter was 23-2. So when you were asking him to pick up on horses, he was already 4 lengths behind the second to last horse, 3 to 4 lengths behind that horse at that point, and the field was quickening up. So I don't think he has a 10 4/5 to 11/8 of a mile in him, so he couldn't quicken up. At that point, he had given up. He just had no chance at that point. He had lost all chance. I don't know what happened. Maybe this horse doesn't show up again. Maybe he's got issues and we're not going to see him again. But it's hard to imagine that the race was going to play out the way it did. And Spring Court is a horse that I'll be interested to see what happens if he runs again, where he runs, and how he does. And does he have more speed? How does the race play out? He had no chance as this race developed. Imagining, he's a horse who probably doesn't even want to have the lead, and I think he might be a horse with a little bit of a future.
Yeah, I think that shows how good he is, a horse to be able to do what he did, come from so far off the pace in his first couple of races, and adapt and be on the front end in a race with not much pace in there. That's a talent that not a lot of horses have, to be able to be as effective coming from off the pace as he is on the pace. And, I guess that just means he could pretty much be anywhere he wants in the race, as long as there's not a super fast pace. He won't be on the lead there, but he's got some decent tactical speed, more so than it showed in his first couple of races.
Yeah, he is a horse that can move his game around a little bit, even though obviously dynamics in his favor in this one, but they may not be the dynamics that he prefers, and we'll see, because obviously Shug McGay has a good record with improving sort of late developing horses, especially in the turf, and he's had such a good year. I don't think Imagine is going to be a big pricing on him in the future, but he is a horse just to keep your eye on. We'll see what happens with Spring Court, but he had no chance in there.
We'll take a look at our next race now, and this is the 4th race from September 23rd, Friday, a day where the track was wet, and seemed like the inside was not the place to be, and then you had a heavy favorite in this race, Miss Diane, who never left the rail.
Yeah, it was an odd race. Miss Diane, on paper, laid over these. Maybe she's not a horse who liked the wet track, but one of the reasons we wanted to show this race was Friday and Saturdays, the 23rd and 24th, you didn't want to be on the rail, and we wanted to show at least one race from those days, and we'll show another one in the second segment, but there's some trouble, but also to show you to look for horses that were down inside on those days. I'm surprised that Rajiv Mirage, now it was early on Friday, and maybe that people weren't that aware of it. Raj is pretty attuned to what's going on, and this horse just dropped right to the rail.
Yeah, stays on the rail pretty much the whole way, and will come over to the top of the stretch and stay on the rail, as even the horses that are on the lead now are a few paths off the rail, maybe in the 3 or 4 path or so. Rajiv's right on about the rail, or the 2 path with Miss Diane here, And Miss Diane fourth now toward the inside in those blue silks, and we'll roll it, and we'll actually roll it to the top of the stretch, then pick up the head on, where you can really see what we're talking about here. It seems like every other rider avoiding the inside, whereas Miss Diane is being kept down toward the rail.
Yeah, she's right down the rail as they turn the stretch, and here's the head on. You can see her right down there, and yeah, she'll drift a little bit off of it in the stretch, but relative to the other horses, she's really being kept down. And look, now Raj is hitting her left-handed. It's not like he's driving her into the rail, but he sort of made a decision at the beginning of the race that put her in this predicament. Now, I'm not saying she was going to win. Who knows what she was going to do in here? It just seemed a little bit odd. She ended up down the inside, and once again, want to point out, keep your eye out for horses that underperformed, that were buried down towards the inside on both Friday and Saturday. It changed on Sunday as the rail got good on Sunday. We came in this week. Wednesday, the rail didn't seem to be the place to be. I'll tell you what, we've had a lot more dead rails at Belmont in the starting late in the meet in July last year and going into this meet than I've seen here in years.
Yeah, it's the way it used to be pretty much all the time, with the rail not the place to be here at Belmont. It seems like it's been more evenly matched the last few years or so. But, wet weather and the weather pattern that we've been in over the last couple of weeks or so, with just moist air, a lot of clouds, and wet tracks, just kind of leads it to be tough to be able to get the track all that consistent sometimes.
Oh yeah, I don't know the reasons these things happen. I just know they happen, and it's something you want to pay attention to, and we want to pay attention to your comments. We like to hear them. Trips and traps at NYRAInc.com.
Come on back for the second segment.